All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. We really appreciate you being with us. I've got Rob Spencer here, my co-host to my right. We're going to talk a little bit about, it's one of these shows that we've had many times, or at least it feels like we've had many times. Like, why are we still dealing with so many of these deep state criminals walking free? Every day they, continue to walk free is a travesty of justice, in my opinion. And what does all this mean in the context of what's going on right now within the conservative MAGA movement, which seems to be fractured right now? We're now, 3 months past the assassination that we all saw with Charlie Kirk, and now it seems that the movement, the conservative movement or MAGA movement or whatever, is more fragile than ever. We're going to ask why that is. The Paul Harrell program starts right now.
The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, folks, thanks for being with us as always. Like, share, and subscribe this video, or whatever platform you're watching on. Just do the thing. Rob Spencer, thanks for being with us again.
Paul, it's an honor to be here as always. Looking forward to talking with you on the issues of today. I've said it. People that watch the show regularly are probably tired of hearing me say it. I want perp walks, and if we don't have perp walks, then that deep state just keeps festering, man. It just keeps breeding. And what does it lead to? It leads to doubt. It leads to frustration in the conservative side. And what do we have now? We have a fractured conservative, whatever you want to call us, coalition here.
Coalition, that's a good word. Yeah.
We're a fractured conservative coalition here, and that stuff happens. That stuff happens on the Democratic side as well. The Democrats will get fractured. You've got the progressive wing and you got the more centrist. But what do? They coalesce. They coalesce around a candidate, any particular thing, anytime elections come around. Will the conservatives do that? Because if they don't, this is going to be a bloodbath in 2026.
Yeah, and there's already people trying to figure out, who's going to be responsible for losing the midterms, right? 4 or 5 weeks ago, it was, Tucker Carlson because he decided to interview Nick Fuentes. Now there are people saying that Candace Owens, she's going to, be the one responsible because she's not believing the official narrative from the FBI. Matter of fact, Tucker just put out a video about 5 minutes, 5-minute video today, saying that he doesn't necessarily distrust Kash Patel or Dan Bongino, but he does think it's perfectly reasonable to distrust the FBI because it's just such a large organization, and that it's up to the FBI to prove to the American people, that's their job, to prove to the American people that they do have the right guy, there wasn't anyone else involved, and all that other stuff. You have this feud that erupted this week now between Tim Pool and Candace Owens. I've had this wait-and-see approach the whole time. You're familiar with it because when we've talked about it.
Sure.
Because while I'm not necessarily on board with and I'm not even as aware as I should be about every little jot and tittle that Candace Owens is going down this road, going from it being a foreign government, Egyptian planes, now the French intelligence, all of the stuff that she's saying.
Whatever the flavor of the day is.
I mean, it's a lot. There's no question about it. It's a lot, but I've just kind of had a wait-and-see approach because I'm like, well, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with all of that, but I also don't believe the official narrative, or I tend not to believe the official narrative because I want more information first.
Sure.
So anybody that's going to seek after this new information, I've learned I've learned about 10 years ago when Donald Trump ran for office, this idea of just trying to write somebody off completely so you never have to listen to anything they say again is just not a wise thing to do most of the time.
Sure.
I mean, you can get to that point where I'm never going to even entertain that person ever again, but I'm a lot slower than I used to be about at least, waiting and seeing. All that being said, it is disturbing to me, Rob, that you took a guy like Charlie Kirk, who was very much the backbone of engaging young people. He helped President Trump win the young people, and they took that guy out. And now, because in a large part nobody believes any sort of official narrative. I mean, that is especially on the right. There's among that coalition, there's a large percentage of people that are just so skeptical. And now the whole movement, for whatever reason, wherever you want to put it, it just seems to be totally dysfunctional and at war with one another. And so you look back from a strategic standpoint, whatever the motivation was, whether it was Tyler Robinson who killed Charlie Kirk, whether he had help or whatever, Charlie Kirk appears to be kind of like the linchpin that was keeping everything organized and, kind of working. And now that he's gone, that's not happening.
What do you think? Do you think that Charlie Kirk was what they intended? So, like, if you're going to go down this rabbit hole, you're going to believe that the deep state exists. It is a puppeteer here, and the marionette, whoever that is Trump. It's Charlie Kirk. It's all of these politicians who seem to vote based off of when you see all this ridiculousness coming out on the Democratic side, and they're like, oh, the Affordable Care Act and all of that, but dead people are receiving benefits for ACA, and you're just like, okay, well, I don't think that any rational person believes that should happen. But the Democrats are coming out and just say, let's continue ACA. Let's not make changes to it. Let's continue it. So what does that mean? They're being paid, right? We know that those those financial contributions are coming in. So we say, all right, well, I question you. I question all of you. I think the deep state is running all of this. Was Charlie Kirk, we've not really talked about this. Was Charlie Kirk what they envisioned Donald Trump to be? Meaning, we didn't get him. We didn't get him in Butler. Let's get the next best thing here, which is Charlie Kirk. And by all accounts, Charlie Kirk delivered 2024 for Donald Trump. There were a few other factors. Scott Pressler up there in Pennsylvania. There were a ton of things that factored in there, but the huge monumental shift for college-age voters to Trump delivered him 2024.
Who would have all voted for Charlie Kirk for president in the next 15, 20 years?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, 100%, even less. Even less. I mean, honestly, I don't know how old was Charlie? He was 31?
Yeah.
31 when he was killed. So just based off of how his birthday would have fallen, I don't know if he would be eligible to be vice president in 2028. But suffice it to say that he's 2032 front runner.
Yep.
Like all of us, me and you, who are significantly older than Charlie Kirk, would have looked at him and just like, you want to tell me you got somebody better than him? You want to tell me that you have someone rational who is a conservative, who is able to argue their points when he is debating with a political leader of a different country or whatever? Like you want to believe that there's somebody better than Charlie Kirk? He would have won in a landslide, and that's my opinion. I believe that's your opinion.
No, I think you're right. I think he would have, and in a very weird way, getting rid of him was like, assassinating a future president, or like going back in time and killing John Connor, who's going to lead the resistance against the machines, and in the Terminator movies. I know that's a crude comparison, but
or at the very least, Paul, they were trying to cut the legs off of something that was gaining
to
much
permanently
steam.
Like go forth in unity. Because if you factionalize it, it's easier to control. The more unified we are, the harder it is to control us. And so, the idea that with somebody like Charlie Kirk still doing what he was going to do, somebody like a J.D. Vance, where you make this country a center-right country for the next 30 years, And you can see there's clear motivation for that not to happen, right?
Sure.
Obviously,
Yeah,
and
because what happens in the center, Paul? What happens in the center? What do you get when you're in the extremes? So the House, the Senate, and the presidency, all within Democratic things. You get tons of money that comes in on the conservative side, and conversely, we see the exact opposite when the conservatives are in power. Right, Democrats are receiving tons of money right now, even though they created all of the problems that they're bitching about the conservatives about. Like you're saying, oh, the affordability problem. Like you created this problem, but yet they're getting tons of money for it, right? So we see that there is money to be made in the extremes. There's not money to be made in the center. The deep state, that's not where the money's at, man. That a centrist who is reaching across the political spectrum there, reaching across the aisles, the centrist who is Ronald Reagan, who was getting all of these Democrats to vote for Republicans, right? Like that stuff doesn't exist.
Not anymore, yeah.
It doesn't exist. You want an extreme, you want a Trump, right? Democrats said they wanted a Biden, but they wanted a mindless shill. That's what they wanted.
Yeah.
They want someone on the far left. They want an AOC. They want a what's her face there that they're saying it's a Kamala and AOC as a
or Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett.
That's
Senate,
who it was.
So
that's who it was. So they were like, oh, we need an AOC and a Jasmine Crockett ticket in 2028, and you're like. And, of course, the conservatives like, please do it. But they're going to get a lot of money, Paul. They're going to have a ton of money coming after them there. There's no money to be made in the center with rationale, right? And that's what Charlie Kirk would have been.
And back to the argument about, how fractioned, divided – how divided the movement is into factions, seemingly, over this Charlie Kirk thing, right? Those who, no, it's the official narrative, or it's, I'm a little skeptical, or, the Candace Owens. I was looking at one of her videos.
Who has Candace not blamed for Charlie Kirk's death?
This is a good question.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's the whole thing to me is very frustrating, but I was looking at one of her videos on YouTube, the last one she did yesterday, 1.4 million views.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, people are watching this.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the reasons why you have, especially this week, a lot of people finally, like Turning Point USA coming out and directly confronting Candace on.
Erica Kirk went on Fox News. She went on Fox and Friends in the morning and was spitting fire.
If
you've not seen that, like you need to watch that. She was spitting fire.
So, this is all kind of happening. People are pushing back on this, and I'm fine with that. I want to get to I just want the truth, and I want the FBI to give us the truth and everything else. But 1.4 million people on her last video, and it just makes me think that no one believes anything. Like this is I guess the problem of where we're at is that so many people do not think they have the truth about this incident, but they also just don't believe they're getting honesty from the administration, I think, on a lot of different areas. Because, and it really started with calling the Epstein thing a Democrat hoax.
Which was stupid.
Which was so ridiculous. Or coming out and telling us, oh, no, Epstein killed himself. I saw the video. Then they released the video, and there's minutes missing from the video.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what's happening. And so everybody right now is trying to figure out who to blame if the Republicans lose the midterms. But I'm telling you, in my opinion, it's not going to be this scandal or, who shot Charlie Kirk or Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson or Tim Pool or any of that. That's not who's going to be to blame if the 2026 midterms are lost. It will be the Trump administration's fault because there is a feeling around among the base right now that they're just not being honest. There is a lack of honesty with the American people about a litany of scandals, and there's a lack of movement in the DOJ from actually arresting people. And when they finally did get around to arresting James Comey, he avoided the perp walk.
Yeah.
And then I think the deep staters in the DOJ intentionally messed up the indictment, knowing that the judge
You
would
think
throw
so?
it out. I do now. At this point, I think the last minute addition of Lindsay Halligan, she was going to pursue it, but I think the people who were actually involved, some more underlings, intentionally screwed the indictment up so that he could get off with the technicality.
What do you think about Fatisha James there? Like, do you think that was particularly or purposefully?
I don't know. That's a good
bungled,
question because that's been thrown out, right? Because they just say that Lindsay Halligan was illegally, or she wasn't. Are both of them the same reason? Because I thought one, there was some funny business.
It
with
was
the
about
indictment.
it, but then the grand jury failed to indict Fatisha James again. And so I look at it and try to say, all right, well, even if you're the most liberal grand jury that you've ever seen here, like if you've got the smoking gun, which it seems to be, like, hey, she said this was 4 units when it was 5, because she wanted this bed, and her cousin is living there. I mean, we've kind of gone down this rabbit hole, but if you're trying to tell me that the grand jury looked at that and couldn't set their partisanship aside enough to indict her again, then I feel like it was half-hearted.
Yeah.
I feel like you went in there and you're like, hey, listen, Fatisha James here, she just made a mistake. You know what I mean? It's not a big deal. Like, I don't think that they went hard after Fatisha James. And if you are not, like, it just speaks to the topic of the show today. Why have there not been arrests? Where are they? Where are they? Like, you indicted these 2 fireball linchpins of whatever you want to call it. Like, you indicted these 2. And you completely crapped the bed about it. Mm-hmm. And then you had a chance to go after him again. And what'd you do? Fatisha James walks, right? Comey looks like he's going to walk.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what is this, man? If Pam Bondi can't do any better than this, she needs to get the hell out of there.
You're exactly right. And the issue is Pam Bondi actually in charge of the DOJ? Now, I mean, I think, yes, she is. But then there's all these people saying, well, there's just so many people underneath her that are holdovers from the deep state. And it's like, well, how do you pick, if you're President Trump, how, like, if I guess I just don't understand. If I am President Trump and I am interviewing somebody to be the Attorney General, like, one of the first things on the list is, what are you going to do with all of these lifers who are essentially deep state DOJ attorneys that are all communists? What are you going to do with the communists that are all throughout the DOJ that participated in all that stuff with Operation Arctic Frost? Like, what are you going to do? And the answer is, well, here's a list of people that I want you to fire. Or here, Mr. President, here's a list of people I think we should fire. The fact that, from what I can tell, that hasn't happened, and it hasn't happened because let's go to here.
Yeah, why are they not carrying their box of crap out of their office yet, Paul?
Exactly.
To your point.
I mean, look at this right here from Roger Stone about the pipe bomber that, the suspect. Again, people don't feel like they're being honest about that either, some of them.
Sure.
Roger Stone. So the same FBI agent who tried to pressure Proud Boy leader Enrique Tarrio into saying falsely that I was his liaison to President Trump on January 6th, I wasn't, is now heading the investigation into the pipe bomber. FBI Director Kash Patel, are you paying attention? This has to do with Casa Castronova's reporting about, let's see, what's her name? Now I can't. Jocelyn Ballantine. Okay? So Jocelyn Ballantine was that attorney, and she's tried to essentially get Enrique Tarrio of Proud Boys to lie to make it look bad on President Trump.
Roll over on
and
Trump.
Now she's one of the prosecutors after they found
How the hell did she have a job?
I don't know. I don't know. And this is the problem. So I mean, how do you not look at this and say Trump's picked the wrong people? The people that he has picked haven't cleaned house.
Sure.
What other conclusion can I come to, especially after how she handled the Epstein files?
Yeah.
What other conclusion can a reasonable person come to then? Yeah, Pam Bondi's not it. She's
She's
going
not.
on Fox News, but is she actively working against the MAGA agenda? It certainly feels like that.
I want to say that it's more like about being inept, and rather than just malicious, what's the word, subterfuge. Like I don't know that she's trying to undercut or undermine Trump, but I can tell you this, that when she gives a press conference, and I agree with her, like I'm a conservative. Her voice and the way that she describes things is exactly how I listen to Larticia. Okay? Larticia James, who is up there in New York, she is the absolute antithesis of someone who is a rational, reasonable prosecutor. Okay? Pam Bondi, you're supposed to be the hammer for Trump, right? And to me, you're no better than Larticia James. Okay? You're not. And if you don't perp walk these people successfully, me and you, we have talked about this on the show, Paul. Like, what the hell are these indictments? What good are they? Right? If you're not going to actually have some convictions here, then we're going to look up in 2026 and certainly 2028, and we're going to say this was a failed administration. Yeah. Because hey, the economy's probably better. Hey, we got a lot of money coming in from the tariffs. Interest rates are down. Things are looking up. Okay? Is the deep state in prison? Are there members of the deep state in prison? Because right now, the way it's looking, Paul, 12 months into this, it doesn't look like that's coming.
Is there a flag post that people who are left look to say that will happen to me if I continue in this buffoonery?
Hell no. At this point, no. They're like, oh no, I'll get the liberal media on my side, and Pam Bondi will fold like a cheap suit.
On the subject of deep state criminals, we've talked about this before. The Transition Integrity Project was a series of political scenario exercises in the United States at the beginning of June 2020. So we're in the midst of COVID. And it involved 100 current and former senior government and campaign leaders, academics, journalists, polling experts, and former federal and state government officials. The exercises examined potential disruptions to the 2020 presidential election and transition. The Transition Integrity Project is not an organization, but rather a short-term project run under the auspices of the organization Protect Democracy. Mike Benz has done an incredible job looking into this. Everything that was involved, you can look up very detailed articles about what to do if Trump claims that he won when he really didn't, or what to do if Biden wins and Trump says, hey, something was fishy with the election. Mike Benz and others are saying, look, this is where they actually planned January 6th.
Sure.
This is where, who knows, maybe even the pipe bomber was thought up. This is from
Protect Democracy, the auspices of the organization Protect Democracy.
That lets you know right
there. Do you hear Republicans talking about how we need to protect democracy? First of all, Paul, in the United States of America, do we have a democracy?
No, we do not. We have a constitutional republic.
Correct. What's the big difference?
But we don't really
there?
even have that. But yes.
Yeah. But what's the big
paper.
difference? Like, if you're sitting here watching this, folks, what's the big difference between a democracy and a constitutional republic? A democracy, let's boil it down to the simple. It is majority rules. 51-49. Whatever that is. A constitutional republic means that we elect representatives to represent us in Congress and represent our interests. Is it flawless? Of course not. Of course not. We send people to Washington all the time that are only there to pad their pockets, and we've seen it a million times. But if you have a democracy, then it is simply, if we had a true democracy, it is simply who can get more votes than the other person. And somebody would say, well, that's the point. That's the point. Conservatives have a big problem with how those votes are counted and riled up here, because what are we doing? We're bringing in third world countries and saying, hey, vote for these Democrats so you get this free money, because that free money allows those Democrats to stay in power. And what do we see here? We see Democrats who are voting against the interest of their district, they're certainly voting against the interest of the American people.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry, that was a side tangent there, Paul.
No, I mean it's so frustrating. Here's another thread about all this. So the Trump administration is demanding that Tina Peters, be released from jail and be brought into federal custody. Ann Vanderstill is on this, that the real reason Tina Peters is in prison and why nobody stopped the Venezuelan gang takeover of U.S. neighborhoods during the Biden regime is that 2 Venezuelan generals confessed that Smartmatic wasn't a voting company. It was a military intelligence weapon for altering elections and controlling populations. Okay, so this is a totally different thing. We've been loosely covering this based on Emerald Robinson's reporting.
Right.
There's another side to that story because a guy that I do like a lot over at Conservative Treehouse, The Last Refuge, he's skeptical because on Emerald Robinson's show the other day, Patrick Byrne, who was one of the 3 musketeers that helped expose the election fraud and potentially save the 2024 election, came out and said he was a CIA asset and worked for John Brennan yesterday. In an act of transparency, he said this on Emerald Robinson's show, and he said this on Alex Jones' show live.
I've not heard that.
I actually find the honesty refreshing.
Sure.
Other people like Sundance here are saying, this kind of makes the whole thing stink, which I don't know. I don't really.
I don't know.
I can see, there are ways for people to do the right thing.
Yeah, but I think you need some evidence. I think you need to present stuff.
Yeah.
It can't just be, spoken word about this or that. Hey, this is what I saw. This is what I experienced. And this is the undercutting of the president. Let's see some actual evidence.
Yep, and that's what we got. And we've got Donald Trump confirming that the United States right now has seized an oil tanker back to the right off the coast of Venezuela. Okay. Back to the whole honesty thing. Do people feel like they're being lied to, or do people feel like the base, are they being honest? If we go into Venezuela, this is a whole can of worms, obviously, and it could be a huge quagmire. But if you go into Venezuela and you tell people it's about the drugs, and you leave out this reporting or some version that even gets close to this reporting that, hey, this was about Smartmatic software, that's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. Or at least give us a contrary report about the elections, which Donald Trump says we're going to get very soon, that the election was stolen. They have all the information. Is it going to contradict Emerald Robinson's reporting here? Is it going to confirm it? Is it going to be something? Are we going to have another situation like Steve Baker at the Blaze? We got the pipe bomber. FBI says, nope, you don't. It wasn't the Capitol Police. It was somebody else. Is that what's about to happen again? And again, all that's going to do is just fuel the mistrust. Nobody believes our people. We don't believe our people.
And honestly, let me just tell you something. So what happened in 2020 was a travesty. I've watched 2,000 Mules, Dinesh, and it was just a great documentary. You talk to like that, to me, is irrefutable, right? Because
that's before you get into the machines at all. You just focus on the ballots.
You just see these people walking up at 2:30 in the morning with boxes of ballots, and you're just like, where do you come up with these, man? Where did you get these ballots? Did you go around to every nursing home in the area and round these up? And why the hell are you dropping them off at 2:30 in the morning? You're doing that because you don't want any other eyes on this stuff. But cameras saw what you did. So we've all seen 2,000 Mules, or if you haven't, you've at least seen clips of it, and all the leftists will be like, oh, that's debunked. That's debunked. You're full of crap. You are full of crap if you don't believe that the left looking at Donald Trump as the reincarnation of Adolf Hitler, that they wouldn't do anything that they could to keep that man out of office. You are so naive. You are so naive. I've got a bridge to sell you. What is the expression? I got a bridge in Arizona.
Nowhere. A bridge
to nowhere. I got some oceanfront property in Arizona. That's what George Strait said. But you are full of it. I will say this. As egregious as 2020 was, as frustrating as it was to sit there on election night, and for all of us who went to bed here in the Central Standard Time Zone believing that Trump was just reelected, and then you see the reports, and it's like and it shot up at 2:00 in the morning for when 100% of the votes were for Biden. You're like, whoa. This is something smells bad on this. For all of that, I don't care about 2020. I don't. All I care about, I don't give a damn about this report that they're going to release saying, "Oh, we know we can now prove that it was this or that." You are in control of all three chambers right now. Barely in the House. I get it. Barely in the House. In the Senate, it's with Markowski and what's the other one? Lisa Markowski and the other one
Susan Collins.
The centrist, right? But other than that, even if and Rand Paul, who is a rogue person, you just never know. But if it's 50-50, we know that Vance, right, gets that vote. But here's the thing. If you don't fix our elections, Republicans are going to struggle to ever win another election, in my opinion. I believe fully that Donald Trump won the 2024 election by far greater numbers than it was reported. Mm-hmm. I believe that he probably won it in 2020. We'll never know because there was so much fraud that happened in 2020. I believe that they corrected a lot of that stuff. But if you don't fix election integrity before 2026, the House is gone and possibly the Senate.
And how many of the rhinos in the Senate want their power, want it to flip? They don't want to have to enact Trump's agenda. I think many of them have. So when we were talking earlier about how people are trying to blame this person for the loss that's coming, or Candace Owens, or whoever, this is what it's like. No, if you want to blame anybody for the 2026 election, you can blame the Trump administration, or you can blame the Senate that refuses to get rid of the filibuster, because that is the difference.
You think the Democrats aren't going to get rid of that filibuster as soon as they get in there?
100%.
They are going to get rid of that in a heartbeat.
To kind of answer that question a little bit more, here's Mark Mitchell being interviewed on the American Journal with Brianna Morello, and I want you to listen to what he says about the polling that he's getting from the base, from Trump's base.
Yeah, I've been saying for a lot of the last couple of months, well, Trump's approval rating isn't that bad. It'll probably recover. And yet now I'm staring at a -12 net approval, and I'm not so sure anymore. I'm really not. Now, he hit this low in his first term a couple of times. He actually got down to a 38% approval rating, but it was when they were throwing Russian collusion at him 24/7 on MSNBC, and everybody was tuning in to Rachel Maddow, and everybody literally thought that Donald Trump was a Russian asset and they were going to pull him from the presidency. And that, went away after about 6 or 7 months. People realized, well, it's kind of a hoax, and Donald Trump was starting to accomplish real things. The economy was starting to turn around. His approval rating recovered, and the last time it got to -12 was in May and June of 2020. Well, when was that? It was a few months into COVID. People weren't really happy with what was going on. And the Summer of Love, George Floyd riots, and in my opinion, probably a couple of optics that Donald Trump could have done better at back then. So this is not good. This is like he got way more votes. He had the right platform this time. He essentially got a mandate. And why are we looking at a -12 Trump approval rating? Now, I mean, there is some good news. We just did a generic ballot poll. Democrats are only up 3 points. You'd probably like to see Republicans winning, but history tells us they're not going to. And the fact that it's not a blue wave is probably a really good sign. But the really most troubling thing is that Donald Trump, sequentially, we watched it happen. First, he lost his crossover Democrat supporters. Then around Epstein and bombing Iran, he lost his independents. He got down to a -22% independent approval rating. That's where he's at today. And most recently, over the last couple of weeks, he started to lose some of the Republican support. So Republicans had given him approval rating in the 80s with a strong approval rating of over 60% for most of this term. Well, his strong approval hit to 53%, I think, 2 days ago, and his overall Republican approval is in the high 70s. And his right direction polling for Republicans is now in the mid 60s when it was lower 70s for most of the term. One of the things I tweeted is that America is not the same America it was 10 years ago, and we really need a wartime president right now. We really need somebody laser focused on the core problems facing America. And I look at what he says, and I wonder if he even really understands what they are.
You can't ignore this. So right now, speaking of them not wanting to end the Senate filibuster, there are Republicans who are open to opening an investigation against Pete Hegseth to try to figure out why he's bombing drug terrorists in a boat. So Mark Mitchell says, it blows my mind that Republicans have an investigation into Hegseth wasting drug terrorists, but not Hunter Biden's laptop, Seth Rich, pharma murder, which would encompass all of the COVID crimes, Act Blue, with their credit card processors taking foreign donations, January 6th, Reddit, not really sure what the Reddit controversy is, maybe you know, election integrity, Ukraine corruption, Epstein, CCP spying, insider trading, tech election interference, etc. So they're not interested in any of those things, but they are interested in the latest hoax that's going to distract again in, you know, this covert operation to get rid of Pete Hegseth. And it's weird because it's like, is the idea of going to war with, I know there are some people that are like, the neocons want to go to war in Venezuela. Maybe they do. But this seems to me like Trump is potentially about to do regime change in Venezuela, and for some reason they're going after Pete Hegseth. Yeah. If they really wanted that, they wouldn't be doing that. I'm confused.
Okay,
so
let me just say this as a person who has a lot of insight into the military capabilities. My best friend, former military intelligence, we've had lengthy conversations about the capabilities of the United States military. Venezuela would get run over, and it would be a very, very short fight. This is not us attacking Iran.
Okay.
This is not us attacking Iraq back in the Desert Storm, who had all of these subsidiaries who were funding and helping Saddam Hussein, which honestly turned out to be. If Saddam Hussein had stayed in power,
things would be a lot stabler.
We may not have Al Qaeda. We may not have ISIL.
There'd be a lot more Christians alive today. I'll tell you that much.
Absolutely. And so we can go down that rabbit hole on just about anything here. But Venezuela being a threat, like if they're sending drug boats into the United States across the Gulf here and they get blown apart, there's literally nothing they can do about it, Paul. Because what is their recourse? Economic recourse? We don't need their oil. As a matter of fact, it's probably better if we don't have their oil. Military action? Are we worried about Venezuela's military action? They would probably have some militant actions that would cost American lives. But when you're talking about like that's more of just a swatting.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I completely agree with you. And this assumes that China and Russia stay out of it, which I think they will, even though there are reports that Russia's got their submarines around the area right now.
Sounds great, but except that Russia's they've already picked their fight over here.
Right, exactly.
Right. And I think, in my opinion, that China wants a good economic position with the United States. Mm-hmm. And I think that they all look at 2026 as being, hey, here's where we are. We're all going to hit our strides. We're all going to hit our economic strides here in 2026. We don't need this crap with these drug boats here in Venezuela. But Mark Mitchell is spot on here. We're sitting here looking at Pete Hegseth and saying, oh, well, he shouldn't have double tapped. He shouldn't have double tapped these boats, because that's inhumane. These people... The people bringing across this stuff on the drug boats, they would murder citizens for $10. The citizens of the United States, they would murder them for $10. They don't care. We are evil. We are the devil here in the United States. And so I say blow them all up. But Mark Mitchell is exactly correct here. Why do we not have a more focused attention to what the actual problem is, not Pete Hegseth, who is solving problems?
Yeah, I agree. And yet, another report, House Speaker Mike Johnson allowed a provision in the NDAA that withholds 25% of the Secretary of War's travel budget until the Pentagon provides footage of the recent Southern Command operations, including the controversial September 2nd strike.
Is that true? I haven't heard that.
Mark Mitchell reported or retweeted it. That doesn't necessarily mean it's true. He says traitors that the only thing they've chosen to come out against is a popular thing that Trump is doing tells you everything you need to know. I mean, I will say this, out of Trump's approval ratings or whatever, this is a popular thing.
It's not blowing up drug boats. Yeah, he doesn't have negatives
because of that.
Because of the blood.
He's protecting the homeland.
I think people are, concerned about the prices that they're paying at the grocery store more than just about anything. But, obviously Trump didn't create that problem. But it's like, what have you done for me? Right? And the Democrats, you're so full of crap. Excuse me. Democrats, if you come out and say, what has Trump done to lower affordability? You created this problem. You printed money for years. You taxed everybody to death. You created 9% inflation, okay? And you want to sit here and blame Trump for the affordability crisis? You're full of crap. I want to say stronger words, but I know we're on television here. So
it's okay.
Yeah.
Please don't.
So, but you're full of it, man. If you think that this is Trump's fault, you're like, well, it's been a year. I've seen that. It's been a year. It's been a year. Why hasn't he fixed it? You think number one, he's been fought all along the way. There's been tons of lawsuits. Everything that he's tried to do has had lawsuits. They're trying to file lawsuits against all of his tariffs. It's going all the way up to the Supreme Court. Everything is being challenged. So that 1 year really has, I think it's honestly pretty amazing on what he's accomplished in 1 year, considering the fact that he is spending.
Economically speaking.
Yeah, economically speaking, because he's spending every other weekend in court right now, or his representatives are, to defend his actions. And you're like, well, why hasn't he fixed it? Because you keep fighting him on it. Let him run the damn country. Stop this crap. Quit. Like, what are you doing? You're filing a lawsuit. You're a state. You're filing a lawsuit against the government. So the government, with the taxpayers, are paying these attorneys to file a lawsuit against the government that is paying for these attorneys. And who suffers from all of this BS, Paul? Taxpayers. Mm-hmm. People who pay their taxes they're paying for you to fight against each other because you hate Trump. You think he's the devil. You think that everything he does is wrong. The Democratic platform, Paul, is whatever Trump does, I am in favor of the opposite. And you're full of shit if you, sorry, TV folks, you're full of crap if you think that you are in the right when all you do is sit there and focus on whatever Trump does. I believe the opposite. Trump could come out and say, I'm going to save every childhood cancer sufferer in the United States. And you'd be like, you know what? Trump only does this because he cares about his approval rating.
Well,
get me off the ledge, Paul.
What I would say is, so what you've just kind of highlighted there are real problems that affect real Americans, average Americans. So to the point of the show about where are the arrests and what is the right doing right now, what are we doing? We're not talking about that.
Yeah,
we're talking about this other stuff, like I don't believe the Charlie Kirk narrative, or I don't believe the pipe bomber narrative, or I don't believe this or that. And by the way, I think it's a perfectly reasonable thing to be skeptical of all of those narratives, everything we're being told. So it really goes back on Trump. It goes back on the people he's hired to convince us that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. When they tried to do that, it actually made it worse. Okay? That's my problem with all of this, is we are infighting, but it's not as if we're infighting because you get called a panigan. It's not like we can't recognize that Trump has done this good thing or that good thing or that. But when it comes to people want the deep state gone. They want to feel like that that they're not slaves, and that these people who have, participated in a color revolution for the last decade against the American people or more, they want to know that those people are going to face justice, because if we did something like that, we would be in jail. And that's the rub. I don't think the Trump administration gets the people around him get. Maybe they do. They just are intentionally sabotaging. But I don't think they understand how absolutely angry the American people are that no one gets held accountable when they're caught dead to rights, whether it's Hillary Clinton, whether it's Hunter Biden, whether it's John Bolton. Give credit where credit is due. Bolton's been indicted. His home's been raided or whatever. But I feel like people want their prices to go down. People want all that. They want gas to keep coming down. They want all of that to happen. But in terms of Republican enthusiasm in a midterm, people want the people who shot President Trump in the ear to go to jail. But what are we told? Thomas Crooks acted alone, even though they cremated his body, even though he had multiple cell phones, even though they had a van that, we're just...
And he got to the most
and it's
obvious
Trump's
perch.
FBI telling us those things. Oh, and by the way, Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. I've seen the tape. We're going to release the tape. It's going to be conclusive. And then there's 3 minutes missing from the tape. And all that did was make you guys look retarded.
You're right. What does that show us? It shows us the power of the deep state. I think that the Trump administration realized with the Epstein stuff that whoa. There was enough backlash that the Epstein stuff changed their approach to it, right? Because they, Pam Bondi in her stupid face released this thing. I've gone full circle on Pam Bondi. I used to love her.
Well, yeah, I know.
I'm so mad at her.
Well, we all wanted to be optimistic. We all wanted it to work.
And she holds these press conferences and goes, that was never going to be released. This is never going to... Shut up.
I know.
Shut up. If you don't have a valid arrest, a valid conviction, you are failing because the proof has to be there. It has to be there because we all see it. And right now, they saw what we can do if we rise in arms about the Epstein things. They saw that.
And what we're missing here, I mean, specifically with Epstein, what we're not talking about is what Jacob Holloway sat in that seat and said months ago, which is all these people, the idea is at least, is all these people have blackmail on each other.
Yeah.
And so, again, and that was the big rub, right? That was the big answer to the question, why do politicians come back with excuses as to why they can't vote the way we send them there to vote? And so this is just for all of them out there. Mm-hmm. If nothing gets done, then the reasonable conclusion is that you guys are in on it and you're protecting everybody. And Republican and Democrat doesn't mean anything, and it's just all one big uniparty, and this is all theater. And there are aspects of that are true, but there was still some hope that, hey, if you win enough times, maybe you'll actually see things change. And if the answer is no, then it's just going to be, we're going to be full-blown communism. That full-blown communism is right around the corner. Something really bad is right around the corner if the will of the people is not realized.
When you see Kash Patel and go before Congress and just light a flamethrower to these congressmen and women who have an agenda, like when you see him just light that flamethrower, what does that do? It's like, back in the day when you would see, Michael Jordan with the ball down to, right, in the end of the game here. Like you had this excited feeling. You're like, oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah, and you knew it was.
You knew it was going to be good. And what do you have? You've got Bondi, you got Kash Patel, and I have no complaints with Pete Hegseth. He's blowing them the hell out of the water. Mm-hmm. But all of it, and to me, is a symptom of you are trying to sell us on something that we fully believe is not true. So you're not doing it effectively, number one. And number two, we think you're lying. If you are lying, then you need to be gone because you are giving this information to the president. And we saw it during the first term, Paul. We saw it during Trump's first term, how he had all of these deep state operatives who were giving him watered down, limited information that was literally not true because it was trying to paint a certain picture. And that stuff is still happening. Yep. Although he's got more loyalists in place, that stuff is still happening. Right now, Is Trump getting the actual information? I'm not trying to sit here and say that I trust every single solitary thing that Trump's saying, but when you look at it through the lens of, well, maybe he's just getting this information because the deep state is feeding that, and they're feeding it through his people who he believes are not involved with the deep state.
Yep, and that's an issue.
To his credit, he's only as good as the information he's receiving.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you're right about that. You know, and back to, I mean, you know, you have to have a mentality. How do you convince the people under him, like a Kash Patel or like a Dan Bongino, that convincing us is actually a priority? You know, I mean, Tyler Robinson could have acted alone. Tyler Robinson very well could be the lone shooter. But why don't we have? Why not release the picture of him prone with the gun in his hand? Why not release that stuff? Why not be more forthcoming? You know, I mean, I know they're going to say, well, that's the trial or whatever. Okay, well, you released the text message thread that very few people thought was legitimate. It seemed like something that was written by, law enforcement officers or AI or something. So, like, when you hear that, you just let it go, or do you go back to because what you just said there? They're trying to convince us of something that nobody believes, not necessarily with the Tyler Robinson thing, but the Epstein killed himself thing. There's just so many, flub ups. Well, so when you go to us, if you're really not lying and you go on Fox News and you say, I've seen the tape, he killed himself, we all play old clips of you saying the opposite as Dan, but it's like, so what else are you going to do to convince us? There's got to be something else that you're going to do, right? If we're really a priority, or if you're just like, well, I'm going to take the loss, and I'm going to move on and hope they forget about it. And that's the problem. I think there's been too many of those instances. Just take the loss; they'll forget about it. And and the people on the right, the left, might forget about this if it were their leaders gaslighting them. But the people on the right and the independents are not. We're tired of being gaslit.
Well, because even the people on the right and the independents are independent thinkers. The Democrats fall in line. There's so many countless memes on there that just says, yes, vaccines stop transmission. Yes, these masks prevent transmission. Even though it says it on the box, you're full of it, man. And I agree with you. We've seen with Bongino, I mean, we have countless hours of him on the radio, on his radio program, very popular, when believing the opposite of what we're hearing at this point. And he would just say, it's not that strong. It's not that strong. But you got to read the room, man. You've got to read the room, because all of us, none of us, no rational person believes that Butler happened from a lone person who got lucky and got on the most obvious perch, because we saw that with a former military guy. He went on Fox News shortly after the shooting, and they asked, what do you think about where he shot from? And he said, there's no way in the world, as a former military assault sharpshooter, that I would have chosen that one. And they asked why. Because it was the most obvious place. He's like, that would have been locked down. I would have gone to some place where they weren't watching, that they didn't think anything about it. And you want us to believe that a 21-year-old, or however he was, he got just lucky. He just got lucky.
Yep. And, they blew his brains out, and then they were hosing off the roof the night of.
Yeah.
Totally cleaning up the crime scene.
Cleaning it all up. And that stupid...
And then our guys get in there, Kash Patel.
Yeah.
He acted alone.
Yeah. And said that there was no... What was her face? Secret Service. And said, there's nobody on that roof because it was too...
sloped.
The slope was too much. And you're just like... That thing barely has any slope.
I know.
I don't even think you would have to balance yourself to walk on
So
it.
the perception is, from people on the right, is that Kash Patel got in there, was either given information or went along with the phony story to protect the Biden Secret Service.
Yeah.
Because at a bare minimum, there was a stand-down order given to not secure that that area.
At the very minimum, because what we saw was there were, and we need to do on a slow news day. We'll do an entire show to this just on Butler, but there were police officers, local police officers there in Butler that said, shouldn't we secure this? Shouldn't we do this? Shouldn't we do that? And it was ignored. They didn't have a direct line. If you're bringing in local police officers, why would they not have a direct line to the boss? Okay, why would it need to go through the chain of command? If they see something, they should say something. All of it smelled just so fishy, and we don't believe any of it.
I know. We've got 5 minutes left, and I saved this segment just for you, Rob.
Okay.
Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett has now decided she wants to run for Senate out of the state of Texas. Interesting point here is she made a campaign video and then deleted the campaign video. Jasmine Crockett's launch video for Senate was an unlisted YouTube video, and it's just President Trump calling her low IQ over and over again. And so it was an unlisted video. It's now deleted. So they thought that maybe this was a good idea, and so they didn't release it, but it got released anyway.
I've not seen this.
How about this new one they have? Their new star, Crockett. How about her?
She's the new star of the Democrat Party, Jasmine Crockett. They're in big trouble.
But you have this woman, Crockett. She's a very low IQ person.
I watched her speak the other day. She's definitely a low IQ person. Crockett. Oh, man. Oh, man.
She's a very low IQ person.
Somebody said the other day she's one of the leaders of the party. I said, you got to be kidding.
Now they're going to rely on Crockett. Crockett's going to bring them back.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Tell me, that's got to be AI, Paul.
I thought it was fake, too.
Oh, my.
But, yeah, so apparently, again, according to Greg Price, it was a unlisted YouTube video, which means it's live. It's just not listed. So if you have the link, the link got out somehow.
I believe Greg Price on this because he usually spits facts. Wow. Wowzer. Okay, listen. If she was going to do that within that theme, right? I mean, and even so much so as what he goes, Jasmine Crockett.
Yeah, I know. It was like,
and she looks, and it was she doesn't realize that it was like he said her name and she turned, right? You know, she doesn't realize the ridiculousness of that. But when you look at it through this lens, do you think that anybody other than hardcore leftists who will never believe anything in the center or anything in the right, that they would be impressed by that, unless you're just a far leftist who just believes that every word out of Trump's mouth is vitriol, hate. Yeah. Okay. Donald Trump, she allowed this video to go of Donald Trump cooking her over and over and ripping her a new one over and over and over again. And now he's on Ilhan Omar, right? And he was on AOC, and he's like, okay, You're trying to ride the fame that Trump is giving you here, but it's not going to get you votes.
No, and she even said that, Texas was I don't know, what was it, plus, let's see, Trump was Texas plus 14. She goes on CNN and says, no, we don't need to flip any. We don't need any of Trump's voters to win, which is obviously mathematically ridiculous.
One of the two senators in Texas.
She also says that blacks, instead of reparations, just black folks just shouldn't be able to pay taxes. We could just let them not pay any taxes, and that would be, a potential solution for the reparations.
You know what?
Thing. So
no one should have to pay taxes, Paul. When I stroke that check every April, I don't want to. I don't want to anymore.
Well, hopefully that would be one thing that Trump could do out of everything we've said today. If the tariffs somehow replace the income tax, because he's been saying it in recent weeks, because I think he knows his approval is taking a dive.
Sure.
That would be the most consequential thing that has been done in this country since George Washington crossed the Delaware. And I mean that. It would be the greatest transfer of liberty from the government to the people since the American Revolution if the income tax were to go away.
I'd be in favor of a consumption tax there, where the income tax goes away, but you tax the goods that you purchase.
I would
because
too.
that affects billionaires down to beggars.
I agree. Rob Spencer, my friend, thank you so much for being on the show today.
It's a pleasure
Folks,
to be here as always.
That's all the time that we have. Want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Red Vive Health. 40% off right now. If you go
What?
to 40% off, promo code Paul at redvivehealth.org/Paul or call 844-RED-VIVE. Mention my name, Paul. 40% off life-enhancing red light panels. New Horizon Real Estate, we appreciate them. Gateway Sight and Sound, T-Guard Bail Bonds, and Sherrod Chiropractic. That's all the time that we have. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Merry Christmas, everybody out there. God bless.